All right. Good evening, everyone. Good morning, Coach Mona.
Morning. How are you? Well, good evening for you, right?
Yeah, here it's evening here, and it's morning there. I understand.
hmm It is
Great. So, how have you been? We've missed you. I mean, it's like I don't know, 3 weeks.
3 weeks. Yep, it's been 3 weeks since we last chatted, so it's been good. Been busy. How about you?
We've been busy as well here on the
Yeah.
page and doing some excellential work. I'm sure you're also doing a lot there,
hmm
and our viewers have been yearning to see you again, to have you again.
Well, hopefully, welcome back, everybody. I can't see who all is here,
Yeah,
but
it is going to be interesting as usual. We have a very beautiful topic.
yep.
Uh, why don't begin by sending these greetings to you? Someone is someone is coming in. Good evening, good morning, Coach Ramona.
Good evening, good
Uh,
morning.
that's Zuleika, and we have someone who is Mona, but not Ramona. She's living in there. Thanks everyone for joining in. And before we start, let me check something here, if you don't mind, Coach Ramon.
No, take your time.
All right. Sorry about that. We shall get back to that. Okay, we have people who already joined in and they've signed in. I believe many more are coming. They're
Great.
inviting themselves. So, Coach Ramona,
hmm
tell me, I'm really excited about today's session. What is it about?
So, we're going to talk about how to uncover our hidden barriers. So, we all tend to have things that get in the way of our success. And so we're trying to figure out what is it within us that's, stopping us from being successful. What are we hiding? What are some barriers that we might not be aware of? This is similar to, limiting beliefs that we talk about in coaching a lot.
Hmm.
So it's along the same lines, but specifically it's language that we use with ourselves and things that we kind of cover up or try to cover up, but that actually, the loud voices within us that kind of keep us from being successful. So that's what we're trying to get to today. I'm excited to see you too. See the comments.
Yeah, they're excited. People are excited. Thanks, Zuleika, for following. I know they're building a very big team here. They're inviting everyone. Thanks for inviting others. So, Coach Ramona, we looked last time, I think you
Mhm,
remember, we looked at something similar,
mhm.
but I would love for you to make that connection for us. We're
Yeah.
talking about hidden barriers, and the other time we were talking about um,
Mhm.
what was it? The statement is keeping my mind.
It was similar in some ways, right? We were also talking about success and what kind of gets in the way of
Yeah,
success.
that's it.
And
Yeah.
last time we talked a little bit about some of the feelings that underlie that, right? There might be feelings of shame or guilt. And so some of this is similar, but these are, it's really closely connected. They're similar, but they're kind of the stories that we tell us, right? That we might not be aware of. And so, we had asked ourselves some hard questions last time, right? Are we
Mhm.
willing to be successful, right? Are we really truly willing to accept success all the time or a better life all the time? And I think that was it was good to get those questions rolling, right? To get people thinking about, well, am I really ready for that, or am I holding myself back in some way, shape, or form? And now we're getting to,
Mhm.
well, what is it that does hold us back? So for some reason, there's a part of us that hesitates, and is not sure if we want to be successful, or is not sure if we want to have a good life. What exactly is behind that? What is getting in the way? And so it builds a little bit on what we talked about last time. We talked about shame, we talked about guilt, um, as well as, kind of feelings of being flawed, right? Of maybe not being competent enough or not deserving enough. And so those are basically the barriers we're going to talk about today, and we're going to break them into, four barriers basically. And
Mhm.
I don't know if we should say them all up front, if we want to go through them one at a time and uncover them as we go.
I mean, you choose for us. I don't know what our viewers think, but I
Yeah,
think it would work either way.
either way.
Yeah.
So let's talk about them one at a time, I guess, and see if any of them resonate with anybody, and we'll go
Okay.
from
All
there.
right. All right. Before maybe you start,
Mhm,
something is. I would love for you to make something clear, please.
mhm,
Uh, we have the term barrier
mhm,
and the term hidden. How can a barrier be hidden? I mean, because in day-to-day life, you know when there is a barrier.
mhm,
So maybe our viewers might wish to understand how can a barrier be hidden
mhm,
and why, I mean, where it gets the potential to
mhm.
block you from success when it's not even seen. So maybe
I
we
think
can start by discussing those two words and how they.
mhm. I think it's similar to glass, right? If you want a visual representation, right? Glass, you can see through it, right? You can see the other side, right? So you might not know that it's a barrier, right, until you hit it. and
Okay.
and then it's too late. And so, it's similar to maybe the term some people have said a glass ceiling, right? Where they say that women sometimes struggle to get to the top because there's this glass ceiling that's kind of holding them back. They can see the top, but they keep hitting up against something. So similar. This is on an internal level. It's like we have all these barriers that are getting in the way, but we're not quite sure what they are. We can't see what they are. We just know that it's there, right?
Mhm.
And we don't know it until we hit it, until we run up
Wow.
against it. Hmm.
Okay, so that is something we are talking about, and I believe not many people understand that these are actual barriers.
Hmm.
Because in my
Yeah.
experience, we were so physical, we're so outside here that it is so hard to convince someone that you're really hitting a barrier that is within. Stop looking outside. I don't know what your experience suggests, but in my experience, most of us look at who is hindering our success, who is blocking us, what is blocking us from outside. But
Hmm.
now, a barrier that is hidden, that is almost transparent, like you've just given that example of a glass.
Hmm.
Uh, how big is it? How bad is such a barrier compared to a barrier that is physical, in your opinion?
I think it's only bad because it's hidden, right? I think once you uncover it and you understand it, then you can start working through it, right? Like once you know that you're hitting glass, you can open the glass door, right? you can find a way. You can find a way
Yeah.
through. You don't have to keep running into the glass. But so I think the barrier itself is not as big of a problem as the fact that we won't admit or won't seek it. We won't see it, right? So once we see it, then we can start working, around it,
Mhm.
just like a real physical barrier, right? If you see something in nature and it's in your way, you can start figuring out how to go around it. But if you don't know
Mhm.
that it's there, then it's really hard to work with it or figure out a way around it or through it or whatever the situation might be. And so we're pretty good at as human beings to hide our feelings from ourselves and to hide some of our thoughts from ourselves, especially if those come with negative emotions. If there's some shame associated with them, some guilt associated with them, we
Mhm.
kind of want to push those things down. And so that's why we create this barrier, right? We won't allow ourselves to really see that part of us because we don't really like that part of us. So
Okay.
so we cover it
Okay.
up, we hide it, right?
I really like it when you said it is not the barrier that should be scaring us or threatening the whole success, but the fact that it
Mhm.
is hidden,
Mhm.
and the fact that we do not want to see it actually, because
You're right.
sometimes, I mean, that was a powerful thing. It is hidden first of all, and one of the reasons that make it worse are like we don't want to see it. It is the
Mhm.
part we do not want to see, and I guess we should just dive into these barriers. I wish to learn more about them.
Mhm. So the first one we'll talk about is, this feeling of being fundamentally flawed, and we talked about this a little bit last time. It kind of works hand in hand with not feeling like you're deserving somehow. And so feeling flawed is that you see your faults, you see those things that are wrong with you, and you think because you're flawed and because there are things that are wrong with you that you don't deserve success. And you don't say that out loud, right? It's not something that you say necessarily,
I
but
know.
it's something that, it's a voice in the back of your head that sometimes keeps you from moving forward or moving in a certain direction, is that you think maybe I'm not good enough for this, right? Maybe I don't deserve this. And so that's the big barrier. Um, it's kind of this idea that there's something fundamentally wrong with you, and of course there's something fundamentally wrong with thinking that. but
Yeah, yeah.
most of us have some of that in us, right? And I think it's because when you look at another person, a person outside of yourself, right, you get a version of them, but you don't get all of them. You don't know every one of their thoughts. You don't know everything that's wrong with them, right? But with ourselves, we know all of us, and some of that isn't positive, right? And so we're really hard on ourselves because we can see all of our flaws, and those flaws, and getting stuck in that cycle of seeing our flaws and feeling our flaws can really keep us from moving forward unless we can accept that yes, we are flawed, and that's okay. Right?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if we acknowledge it, does it help?
I think so. I think it's a huge relief to allow yourself to be flawed, right?
Mhm.
Say we are all flawed. None of us are perfect. Not a
Yep.
single human being is perfect. We all have flaws. We all have different flaws, right? And but we also all have different strengths, right? And so rather than focusing on our flaws, which is okay to accept and acknowledge, and we have to accept and acknowledge, but those flaws don't have to hold us back. They don't have to define us. We are not our flaws, right? We're like our
Okay.
whole person is not just our flaws. We're so much more than our flaws. So that's kind of, I think, the thing that we need to understand.
Great. And I'm feeling fundamentally flawed, like you've just suggested. I mean, how does it block someone from getting where they want to go? Because since it is something that exists within us, like we're
Mhm.
all flawed, like you just mentioned, we're not perfect. Now, how does it come to a point that now it becomes a barrier, and then
There's
it,
a
it becomes
Mhm.
hidden in a way that you really stopped from getting what you want to get in life?
Right. I think there's a lot of things here. So one is we hide it because we don't like the feeling of it, but yet it's still there, right? And so the first thing is we need to accept that we are flawed. The reason it gets in the way is because we're not accepting it while at the same time believing it. It's a weird paradox, I guess. The feeling doesn't go away because we're trying to hide it. It's still there. So bringing it to the surface, and acknowledging it, you can move beyond it. But the other part of this barrier is the fundamentally, right? So when you think that you're fundamentally flawed, there's a part of you that thinks you can't change that or fix that. Whereas if you believe that you have flaws, but they're not fundamental, they're not you as a whole person, then you know
Mhm.
that you can work around those flaws, or you can work with those flaws, or maybe you can even change some of them, right? But if you if you think it's fundamental, like I'm just a bad person, I'm just a bad person, there's nothing I can do about it, then you're not going to move forward. But if you say, I have some bad habits, right, then you can work
Mhm.
with that. So there's
Okay.
two different things there. One is the hidden part, and the other part is the fundamental part. And we need to get beyond both of those to move forward.
So we should replace the word fundamentally because it is kind of the term that makes it a very big deal.
Hmm.
Uh, Feeling that you're fundamentally flawed. What do you
Hmm.
think we can replace it with? Like we are feeling flawed, maybe sometimes, or in bad habits. I would think these are lighter because then a
Hmm.
habit you can work, find a way to work around it. Around it.
Hmm.
There is someone saying that they're watching from Mubende. This is a district in Uganda.
Yes.
Now, let me tell you about that. That is Mbura Siraj. There is a contribution from one of uh, our viewers, Ramona.
Hmm. I
Ramona is
see.
hidden barriers stem from feelings, self doubt, low self esteem.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know. Can you see
I can see
the
it. Yes. So there's self doubt, low self esteem, procrastination, impatience. Um, I think it's supposed to say multitasking, perfectionism,
Mhm.
and amplifying the negativity in us.
Okay.
So all of those, so all of those are part of the barrier, and some of them are a flaw that maybe we have to accept. For example, I'm a
Mhm.
master procrastinator. I really am, and I don't see it as a flaw. I see it as a strength. so
Oh,
So you that can
okay.
go either way, I work really well last minute. So, so that's another thing, is yes, it's to accept our flaws, and not all flaws are flaws for everybody, if that makes sense. What works for one person doesn't work for another person, and what's a flaw
Yeah.
to one person may be a strength to a different person, right? And
Mhm.
so some of it is reframing, our beliefs, right, to make them work for us. So when you were saying, what can I replace fundamentally flawed with? I kind of feel like she could say, we're beautifully flawed, right? We're beautiful human beings, and we come with this big bag of stuff. And some of it is our flaws, but aren't those also kind of what make us unique? Like there's always that
Mhm.
quirky person who shows up late for work every day, right? And in a way, it's kind of funny, right? In a way, they add some color to our lives, right? Here they
Yeah,
come,
yeah, yeah.
walking out, and so
Especially procrastination. We're not trying to sell the idea of procrastinating, but it gives you a
yes.
break sometimes. And the thing about procrastination is that for a person who is action oriented, and this is why we encourage everyone to have a coach with them,
Mhm,
they will help you understand the type of person you are. Sometimes
mhm,
to some people, procrastination is just one of the fundamental things because they take time to think. They take time to get all the details so they can make a
mhm,
decision. So it can easily be read and interpreted from outside as
mhm,
procrastinating, but it is usually just trying to analyze a little bit more. But to some people who are very action oriented, in my
mhm,
experience, these are the people that are killed by procrastination
mm,
because it is just within them that they're action oriented. They are driven by that, and then they are not doing that. It kills
mhm,
them more than it kills someone who is fundamentally uh, uh, or naturally takes their time to think and
mhm,
get the details and analyze, then make one fundamental decision. So I
mhm,
think talking about such terms, we need to be careful. Our viewers, we need to have coaches with us to help us understand even better how to navigate through life. I mean, we discuss with them because that is one of the things that are the coaches are friends,
mhm.
non-judgmental, listening. So they definitely give you the time you need. Uh, there is another contribution here. If you don't mind, we could go through that.
Yeah.
By the way, no, acknowledging your weakness can help you see the good in them by not
Mhm.
focusing on them and seeing uh,
In
and
yourself and ways around you. Yeah.
yeah.
I think
What can
it's
you say about
well, it's kinda like the procrastination we were just talking about, right? So if I acknowledge that I'm a procrastinator, you know, then I can actually use that to my advantage if I'm good about it, right? So just acknowledging it and knowing that I wait till the last minute is one thing, but if I don't acknowledge it and I don't get things done because I'm a procrastinator, that's a whole different story, right? Knowing about myself that I tend to procrastinate, I can take steps to make sure that I either don't procrastinate or that I use my procrastination to my advantage, right? So you take your weakness, whatever that is, right? And you figure out how you can turn that into a strength or how you can work around the weakness. And so it just helps you grow, right? To acknowledge it. But if I don't acknowledge that I have this weakness, then that weakness is going to keep getting in the way. And that's what makes it hidden, right? That's what keeps it hidden and keeps you from being
that?
successful. It's um, kind of like a self-sabotage, right? When we don't want to acknowledge our faults and our flaws, we're kind of sabotaging ourselves from success because we're not willing to work with those flaws. And we can't move forward without them. Like we have to acknowledge that we have them so that we can move forward with them, right? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, it really makes a lot of it. And I was trying to read something here from one of the comments. It is definitely right, because when you believe that one of the fundamentals of humans is that we are not perfect, and actually we're perfect this way,
Mm-hmm.
then you can see everything as just another description of you. So
Mm-hmm.
you something you can control. Then you
Right.
can change the description. You can choose to maintain it. You can choose to walk around it, because you need to achieve you're driven by this great vision, this great uh, mission. Whenever you remember that, you
Mm-hmm.
work to change your habits. I think such a barrier would do a lot of harm, because it definitely affects your self-esteem. Your It breaks you from within.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
yeah, I think we need to change it. We see them as habits, but seeing yourself as fundamentally broken and flawed, this is when you feel you cannot deserve anything. To me, you don't even deserve to be you. Even you might denounce your own parents because
Right.
you feel like you're ashamed to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's a very heavy feeling to feel flawed, right? And I think it keeps you from not only success, but also good relationships, right? How do you accept love and from somebody else if you don't feel like you deserve it, right? And chances are that when you're that undeserving or you feel that undeserving or that flawed, it's going to be hard for your friendships, your relationships, your business success. It really it's a really big blemish, right? If you can't kind of work through that barrier. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Sister Anila is like, it really does make sense. Thank you.
Hmm. Good.
Yeah, so that was number one.
Hmm.
And I know we can really talk about this for the whole session, because it is
It's
quite
a big one.
big
Yeah.
itself. It's really a big one, and
Hmm.
maybe in the end we shall see how we can go up around these barriers. So we
Hmm.
first of all talk about them like you suggested, then we can talk about the solutions later
Hmm.
and how to handle them. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds good
Hmm.
for sure. All right. Whew. Breath, right? That was a heavy one. Okay. So the next one
Uh,
can be heavy, I guess. It's kind of the idea of being disloyal or abandoning. And this one, we talked about this a little bit last time when we talked about guilt. And so sometimes when we try to advance beyond what our family had or beyond what our friends have, that guilt can get in the way. And this is kind of where this falls in, is that maybe you feel like you're being disloyal or you're abandoning people who are not moving in at the same rate as you are, right? If you're more successful than them, you might hold yourself back because you feel like you're abandoning those people who are not keeping up with you. It might be hard to accept that you're being promoted faster than your parents were, or that you have a better relationship than maybe your friend who's going through a divorce, or it's you want to be loyal to your friends and family, and sometimes when you are more successful than them, there's this voice in you that says you're not being loyal to them or you're leaving them behind, and that can stop you from continuing on your road to success.
Great, great. Have you? I don't know if it has happened to you, but there are these moments when you're like moving around, then you buy something for yourself, something really good,
Mhm.
then it crosses your mind like, oh,
Yeah,
you remember everyone who does not have it in your family, and remember what you have not already done for them, because
yeah,
sometimes you actually need something, but you have not given that thing to them,
yeah.
and you feel guilty because it happens to me a lot.
Mhm. Yes,
You go around and then you're like, I could buy this for me. Then you remember everything that other people
yeah,
need, and you feel
right.
guilty about that. Is it the point here you're trying to make, or it
Yes,
is
I think
different?
there's some of that as well. I think that it could be physical possessions. It could also be um, just success in general, though. It doesn't just have to be like that you have more. But I think that's a big part of it too, right? When we look at the world, and there is a fair amount of the world who maybe isn't doing very well, right? And so any success that we have, maybe we feel a little bit guilty that we now have more than they do, right? Maybe we're able to eat a fancier meal than our neighbor.
Mhm.
Maybe we can have a nicer house, or maybe we can have a better car, or whatever that might be. So any of those things, um, yeah, they feed into that, right? They feed into the. Bear with me just a moment. Can I abandon you for just a second?
Okay,
How do I? Can I mute this for just a second? I have a situation in my home. Bear with me just a moment.
I could meet you. All right, and let us give our guest a little few minutes. She's at home. There are kids. Thank you, Sister Mona. What are you saying? We are right, but not perfect. Every human has the power to discover oneself. Thank you very much. And this is right. We are constantly moving forward. And one of the reasons, I think even those who understand God and religion know this already. God did not tell us, even when He knows what is supposed to be happening in the few seconds, the next few seconds, or in the next 1 hour. He did not tell you so you can enjoy the journey, keep on discovering who you are and what you can do, keep on making decisions, keep on thinking. Let me check in with our guest and see if she's back.
Sorry about that. I am back.
We're glad to have you. We love your breaks anyway. We don't have we're not complaining at all, and we have beautiful contributions from our people here. Let me hope
Mhm.
everything is okay right there.
Yes, the unpredictability of children. So
Hmm. Yeah, we know that.
good for now. We're good for now.
Le-
So,
I mean,
yeah.
let them grow. They will see what they will understand more.
Oh, yeah.
we have
So
we have a contribution. Self-esteem issues,
mhm,
little flaws like procrastinating have really caused my friend not to perform at her place of work.
mhm.
I would
Yeah.
love to help her. Why don't you just invite her and she enjoys this journey with us, this webinar, if she can be online? Then, if not, she can always watch it again. Then, if not, Coach Mona is here. You can always reach out. I'm here. You can always reach out. You can do something about it as well. Let us help a friend. Okay. So,
Yeah.
Sister Angela, you got that. You're welcome to Coach Ramona. She's there. You might not come to me anyway.
Well, and I think too that, anything that you take away, you could probably share with your friend, right? But it's sometimes it's easier for people to seek out help themselves, right, rather than take it from a friend. I think it's easier for me to go to a coach or somebody who's not as close to me, because then I feel like I can be more honest about who I am, because I think in front of our friends and family members, we still want
Mhm.
to um, create a certain image of ourselves or a certain persona.
Mhm.
And again, the shame can get in the way. And so sometimes friends won't talk to us about things that they might talk to somebody else about. So that's where coaching comes in handy. I feel like to some degree, coaching is like having a paid friend, but the difference is that you're, a coach, won't have the same expectations of somebody as a friend would. And so they can be more neutral and they can actually be less judgmental in some ways, right? Because as a friend and as a family member, we have an agenda for our friends and family members. And so it's harder for us to be neutral. And so, yeah.
Yeah,
So, mhm,
like what you should be is already predetermined in a way that you don't want to betray the whole tribe
mhm,
because
right.
it's like a tribe. It's like all these people think the way you are. They assume you know where we're headed, and why would you look weak? So no one
Mhm,
wants to look weak before in front of their own team,
mhm,
because you look weak in the team, you weaken everyone. So you have to be
mhm,
strong. And this is why your point is very important. Having someone from outside, a coach, professional
mhm,
enough to listen and to help you get over this is really very important.
mhm.
Yeah, we were before you went off, before they called you, duty call. You were still, we were still discussing disloyalty
Mhm,
and abandonment, and we saw how destructive that is also uh,
mhm.
really is, and it is something we live, I think, with every day. There
Yes.
is always that component, that special, like percentage of feeling guilty that you have what the other one doesn't, especially
Mhm,
those people who appear to you. I don't know
mhm.
how you guys in the USA look at Palestine, uh, or look at someone who might be starving here in Africa,
It
and
obviously depends on the person. I think, I think there are obviously people who don't seem to have a lot of empathy outside of themselves, which is
Mhm,
sad. But, yes, sometimes those people can be very successful, right? Because they don't
mhm.
really have empathy for people outside
They
of them.
just mhm,
Yeah. But I think that there are those people who do care deeply, and I think that that's the problem. It's it's finding that balance, right? We want to care, and we should care about others, and we want to make sure that we don't abandon that, because that's really a good quality, right? It's a good quality to want to be there for others and work together, right? For kind of a joint success, right?
mhm,
But it becomes harmful if we don't allow ourselves to succeed at all, right? If it gets in the way of our own success. So it's a balance, and it's a very fine balance. And I guess you have to kind of figure out how you can get over that feeling of guilt and shame. And I think one of the things I think about is that if I allow myself to be successful, then I'm in a position where I have more power, and I might be in a position where I have more funds, right? Monetary funds. So then I can actually help more people. But if I hold myself back, then I can't help raise anybody else up either, right? So as
mhm,
long as I don't forget my responsibility, then I think I can get over my guilt of being successful, right? So for me personally, and everybody has to have a different way of looking at it that works for you, but for me personally,
mhm,
I feel like that I have a contract, so to speak, with myself that, you
mhm,
know, when I'm successful, or if I'm successful, I will also give back, right?
mhm.
And so
Yeah.
that's how I am able to juggle the two things. So I will celebrate my success and I will enjoy my success, but I will also find a way to help somebody who's less successful in that moment, right?
Mhm,
And so,
mhm,
but that's everybody has to kind of figure out for themselves how to balance that. I think this is probably one of our flaws that isn't a flaw in some ways, right? It's not a bad thing to want to be loyal, right? It's not a bad thing to want to, stay with our family members and our friends and make sure that they're okay. We just have to make sure that it doesn't stop us, right? That the guilt doesn't suffocate us and keep us from being our best version. right?
Yeah, you don't need to be kept behind, to
Hmm.
be stopped, to be blocked because of that. There
Hmm.
is, I don't know, what do you think about that comment from one of our viewers?
Very realistic. Yeah, I like to think that.
Okay, I will let that sink in.
Yeah,
Yeah, there is another contribution. We shall take just one more contribution
yeah.
and then we can proceed.
So the way
Um,
we think and perceive is the way we are. Yeah.
okay, there are beautiful comments here and true. Then, thank you very much, everyone. Sister Mona, Anila, for really this contribution. Um we are already 35 minutes down the road, and
I know.
I believe we should continue. What do you have for us as number three?
Number 3, this is an interesting one, but I think I've seen it play out in different ways, is that success will bring a bigger burden, that somehow success is a burden.
Hmm.
So so if you think about it, sometimes we would talk about it in terms of, well, if I get promoted at work, then I have more responsibilities. Maybe it's easier if I just stay where I'm at, right?
Hmm.
Because I don't have to work as hard where I'm at right now. Or, yes, I could be rich, but then other people might want to try to steal my money. So then I have to worry about my money being stolen. And then, and that's a big burden.
Okay. Okay.
And so almost anything, yes, a relationship would be nice, but then I have to think about this other person and I have to start worrying about their feelings. And that just sounds like a burden,
Mm,
right?
I-
And so,
yes.
yeah.
Wow. Well, what happens when a person believes like this? Because it's like in life, that's it.
Hmm.
Everything that we want to achieve, everything we call success, comes
Hmm.
along with quite a number of extra uh, responsibilities.
Hmm.
So, and with such a belief, I don't think you can do anything at all,
Hmm.
because even living in a better house, taking your kids to a better school, uh, choosing to go out there and meet someone,
Hmm.
everything becomes very heavy for you. So it means that you're going to definitely stay there. So I get it, really get it when you say it is a barrier. It is indeed a barrier.
Hmm. Well, I think it's one of those things where realistically, it's up to you if you want to have more success and be simultaneously aware of the fact that yes, you probably will have more responsibilities, right? But you'll also have more success. So it depends on where you decide to put that weight, right? Are you going to focus on what you will have, or are you going to focus on what you will have to do to get there? So I think there's two ways of kind of overcoming this barrier. One is realizing that your success or your accomplishments will outweigh the responsibilities and the work that you have to put into it. But I think the other part of that too is things are only hard the first few times that you do them, right? And so maybe reminding yourself of things that were hard in the past, right? But then weren't hard anymore. Of course, it's going to be harder at first to have a new job or to, I don't know, start a new relationship and learn about that person and understand who they are and how to interact with them. Those are things that are hard, but we've all done hard things before, right? And we made it. We came up on the other side of that. And so sometimes I think it's good to remind ourselves that everything is hard at first, right?
Yeah,
But it won't be hard after a while.
it has to be hard anyway
Mhm,
in the beginning. Uh, how about we try to reframe this? Because if someone is like more success is more responsibility, well,
mhm.
how about more responsibility also means more success?
Right.
Just
Yeah.
make it a little bit beautiful so
Mhm,
someone can really change it. More success definitely comes with more responsibility. We want to avoid the word burden for our viewers and for ourselves, because when it becomes a burden, then success itself becomes a burden. So we shall not try, because no one would love to
exactly.
carry a burden. But responsibility, you just take it up. You just say that you twist it with great responsibility as well comes great success. What do you think about
Mhm. I like that one a lot.
that?
Mhm.
Yeah, there are these people
The
here.
order. Mhm.
Uh, we have contributions from like talk about it. I think she was commenting on the other, uh, the previous
Yes.
talk about it. For me, sometimes I feel bad saving money when I see a friend or relative starving, but sometimes I cannot satisfy them out. Should I ignore?
It's so hard, and I think that I think it comes down to a balance, right? Is there something that you can do for them while you're still, taking care of yourself? But, you don't want to stop taking care of yourself, right, either, because you can't do anything for anybody if you haven't taken care of yourself. If you're not in a position to have money, save money, and sadly in this world everything is about money, right? So, if if you're not taking care of yourself, then you won't be able to help at all, right? It's about a balance. It really is about a balance. What is it that you can do while still taking care of yourself? Can your friends come over for dinner, right? Um, can you share with them, things that are easier to share that maybe aren't as big of a financial burden? I know it's usually easier for me to have one or two extra people over for dinner, right? It doesn't make as much of a difference on my financial situation as it might if I said, here's, X amount of money for you, right? That's a lot harder to part
Okay.
with. But, can you, gosh, I've given clothes, right, to people, things that, maybe I don't need, right, but they could need. So,
Mm.
can you
Yeah.
share things? There's so many different ways to give back, right, to society and to friends and family that maybe aren't necessarily money, and sometimes
Mhm.
even just giving people your time can be very valuable. Sometimes people just need to have a good friend to listen to them so they can see their own barriers, right, and see their
Mhm.
own things that are
Yeah.
getting.
Yeah, I really love that the thing you said, uh, because sometimes it's not about giving them.
Mm-mm,
Sometimes it's about listening to them and helping them overcome their barriers or their beliefs or their situation. Because it all, to me, it starts right from the way you think. So if you can really be there and help them overcome or correct their beliefs or correct the way they look at the world, this is the best way to help,
mhm,
especially not some way that is material, but it is definitely a way that helps. Maybe tomorrow these people will wake up thinking different, and maybe you invite them to such sessions like this session. It could
mhm,
make all the difference for them. And later, in time, they will have to appreciate you because you did not just give them
mhm,
something to eat or something to a cloth to clothe them their bodies with, but you gave them an idea, you gave them your ear, you listened. So there are
mhm,
many ways to give. There are many ways. We are rich in many ways if we can just understand how to help. So you don't need to
mhm.
get swallowed by their situation and consumed. You just need to know how many ways you can give back.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and I like one of the comments that I'm seeing here about setting boundaries. I think that's really what it comes down to a lot, right? Is knowing
Oh,
where your
yeah.
boundary is.
Yeah. I like these comments as well.
Mhm,
Great.
mhm,
Okay. So that was more success and
mhm,
more burden because
mm,
maybe for those who have just joined, we're looking at the hidden barriers and trying to uncover them. And she promised us four. We're at the third one so far, but the feeling of fundamentally flawed
mhm,
and disloyalty and abandonment, then more success should mean more burden. These are some of the things so far we have looked at, and I think they are universal in a way. They are human hidden barriers everywhere. You will find us thinking like this.
and I think this last one is actually very, very closely linked to the third one. The third and the fourth are very similar. The fourth one is the crime of outshining. And so it's this idea of, well, if I'm successful, I'm going to make this other person feel bad because they're not as successful, right? So it'd be, you know, entering a contest and winning against your best friend, right? Would be really, really hard, right? Because you would feel like you're not your best friend. And so sometimes that fear of outshining, it's almost like we're afraid of our own success sometimes. You know, we want to come across as somebody who's humble, right? And um, who is kind. And sometimes we see success as the opposite of that. Like somehow success is taking something away from somebody else, when the reality is that we can all be successful in our own way, right? You're not taking from somebody else. You're not, there's no crime in being successful, right? But we kind of view it that way. We view it as if we're taking from somebody else, when the reality is we're not. We're just taking what's ours, right? And then other people can take what's theirs. And it's not, it doesn't have to be a competition, right? We can all be successful.
Where do you think this usually comes from? Because I see this a lot. I've
Mhm,
experienced it myself many times.
mhm,
Where do you think it comes from usually, from your experience?
mhm. I think this comes back to, well, fear, but also a feeling of scarceness, that we think that things are not plentiful, right? So we think that there's a limited pool of things. And if we take from that limited pool, we're taken away from other people. So if we think about a piece of pie or a cake, right? So we think, well, if I take this piece of cake, then I'm taking from this limited pool, right? And then what's left is left for everybody else. So we think we're taking more than our fair share. But when it comes to certain things like success, success doesn't come in a pie, right? It doesn't come in a cake. It doesn't come in a limit. So we're putting a limit on it, and we think if we take part of it, we're taken away from other people, because that is true maybe with some things, right? But it's not true when it comes to success. In theory, we could all be successful. There's no limit to how many successful people we can have in the world. So we create a false limit, or a false idea of there isn't enough to go around for everybody. So if I take it, I'm taking it away from somebody else.
Hmm. There is also this thing that comes on my mind right now.
Mhm.
Maybe it is also another fundamental way of thinking that
Mhm.
if you outshine, the other people are not going to shine.
Right.
Like you've already drawn that line. It's like you've crossed it and you had to pull them. So tomorrow they will not come anyway. They are not going to make it. I think deep inside we believe that we were supposed to get there with them, and
Mhm.
now that they've not made it, there is no chance for them. So let us stay a little bit longer with them behind, so we can be maybe tomorrow after the other week or the other month we could do it. We could
Mhm.
cross, and this is uh, something as well we need to correct, in my opinion, because think about you thinking that the other people will not make it, because this is what it means. If you feel that it is a crime to outshine, it means that you believe in some way that they are not coming.
Mhm.
Otherwise, if you believe that they are coming after you, they are going to be successful as well. You wouldn't be feeling like it is a crime. You will just look at it as a stage. They are moving their own paths, and you're moving your own path, and you're
Mhm.
helping them. They are pushing you forward. So I think there is something hidden, deeply hidden, when you start feeling like it is a crime that you're outshining. It's like you're
Mhm.
giving up on them. It's like
Mhm.
you're seeing yourself as the only alpha, as the only way, the only savior. And if you cannot save them, then they're not going to make it. So you feel guilty. You feel like it is a crime. Then go back, die
Mhm.
with them, than leaving them there.
Mhm.
I think that is another thing we can try to think about, and maybe it can help. What do you think, Coach Mona?
Mhm. I think you said 2 really interesting things. One is that we assume that if we shine, they're not shining, right? But I think you can use your shine, your shining in a variety of ways. You can, in a theory, I suppose, you're if you're lit up, you could create a shadow for others. But the reality is if you're the one that's shining, you should be providing light for everybody, right? Because
Hmm.
you share light, right? Light is not yours, you know, and so you're really not outshining, right? You're providing light not just to yourself but to all those around you, right? When you're at your best, right? You can share the light, so to speak. But the other part that
Yeah.
you said is that yes, you it kind of says that you don't have faith in the other people or that you think they can't make it and then you go back for them. So in a way, you're taking away their dignity, right? And you're taken away from their strength, right? They might be going at a different pace or they might be going a different route. And they might not even be going the same place you're going. They might be wanting to have success in a completely different direction than you. so,
That's
so,
right.
uh, so it doesn't make sense to go back for them because we don't even know that they want to go where we're going, right?
Yeah.
The best thing we can do is let people be who they are and grow at their own pace. And life isn't linear either, right? I think a
Hmm.
lot of us life is going to be I'm going to start out here at the bottom. I'm going to work my way up. But the chances are you're going to have a lot of this happening, right? There's going to be a time where you're on top, and then there are going to be times
Yeah.
where you fall from grace, right? And
Yeah.
you're going to be on here again, and then eventually you're going to come back up again, and
Hmm.
you know you're going to go back a little bit and forward a little bit, and you're going to circle around, and
Hmm.
because life isn't a line, you know, and so to hold yourself back from your success because somebody happens to be on a different place, you know, on the scale of things that we go through in life doesn't make sense.
I think the whole curve will have to crash at a certain point if we keep on going back for people. And from my own opinion, I think when you just keep going and keep being successful, you're going to inspire even more than going back for them and feeling like it is a crime to outshine. So push
Right.
for that success. Maybe because there is this law of diffusion of innovation. We shall
Mhm.
not have more than 15% of the whole population to follow. We just have 15% to be early adopters of any idea of success. They will just pick up their bag and run to that success. Maybe the people you're feeling, the people that are making you feel like it is a crime to prosper, are just part of these, the remaining, 85. Okay,
Mhm.
they need you to achieve and make it to that point. Then they will start running towards that point.
Mhm.
Now, not going forward, not moving forward because you feel guilty in a certain way, you're
Mhm.
not helping actually. How about you just go forward, just be
Right.
successful, and like you said, you just shine and you like you start radiating light, and
Mhm.
everything is going to get energy to move. Everyone is going to get energy, so they will come towards you after
Mhm.
you have gotten there. This is what I think about that.
Mhm. That's a really excellent point, and I think so. Part of the research I'm doing right now at a university is around why certain people are not successful, certain groups of people are not as successful. So why are women not as successful in engineering, or why in the USA this is different maybe in other countries, but in the United States, you know, a lot of people of color are not succeeding in certain areas, right? So why do we not have black men succeeding in engineering? Why do we not have women succeeding in engineering? So that's what I'm researching right now. And
Mhm.
I think the problem is that they don't have a good role model because we don't see people at the top who have already succeeded. And so we need, you know, we need black men to succeed so that the other black men can say, I need to be like that black man. And and I as a
Mhm.
woman need to see a woman succeed so I can say, if she can do it, I can do it. Right. And so they're not seeing themselves succeed and hence they think they cannot succeed. And
Mhm.
so we need the first people to succeed, right? We need those people to succeed in spite of the odds so that the rest of the people know that it's possible, right? And so yes, I think it is like shining a light, right? I mean, for us here, obviously it was a big deal when President Barack Obama was elected because he was the first black president, right? For
Mhm.
example. So he shone a light, right? He shone a light over the country that let people think I could do that too, right? And similarly, if
Mhm.
I saw a woman president, which I don't know if we're going to have anytime soon, I might think
No, she's coming.
you know, and
I
so
don't know. I have a good feeling about that. I can
yes,
see it coming.
we'll keep our fingers crossed. But,
We need
you
feminine energy a little bit. The world is so messed up.
we need a balance, right? We really need the balance of all different kinds of people to have a good energy, to have harmony.
Mhm.
So I think yes, do go out and be successful because you don't know who will be inspired by you, right? You don't know who's going to look at you and say, I'm here because of this person that came before me, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I don't know. I think I would love to read about that research because there is this thing I've been believing a lot. I still believe, strongly believe it. The best gift any community can,
Mhm.
or any leader or any system can ever give is to give people a role model.
Yeah.
People do not need your money, they do not need a lot of stuff. Just help them get those role models in every field.
Mhm.
Trust me, they're going to be inspired. And
Mhm.
it's like all that we usually demand of the government is the infrastructure. You
Mhm.
put the roads and put everything, make everything really clear, and we shall settle. We shall build our own buildings. You don't need to build for us.
Right.
So it is like this is the role model. Create role models in the society, and
Mhm.
you will see associations will begin up. You will see campaigns in in the colleges. You'll see people coming up. You see women rising up,
Mhm.
and this is something actually we're working on. I don't want
Mhm.
to blow our secret, uh, so it's no longer a secret. But we need we're trying to empower women, these girls, because you just show them that the girl can do that.
Mhm.
That's all. You don't need to help any girl. You don't need to even sit them down to tell them to do anything.
Right.
Create role models for these people. Now, when you
Mhm.
create role models for people, they are going to want to be like those people. And
Mhm.
because you set a very clear standard through that
Mhm.
role model in a very indirect way, you're going to have a society rise up
Mhm.
and being living to that standard. So I believe feeling like it is a crime to outshine and feeling that actually there is outshining
Right. Right.
it needs to be revised because then the competition is out here. You need to be competing with yourself.
Mhm.
So I think it starts out like it is out here, but again it goes back inside
Right.
to our core beliefs. Now, before
Mhm.
we discussed this point, I never thought about it in the detail that we have just
Mhm.
observed today. But it
Mhm.
is really right. It can't be a crime, and there is no outshining. There is
No,
faith in others, and there is actually hope that
mm,
when you get there, they will see your success and they will be inspired.
exactly. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a good summary.
No, I wasn't summarizing, I was explaining. I
I
don't
know,
know.
but it kind of summed up the point, though, right? There's no
I,
crime.
I, I I
Yeah.
like your internet today, Coach Ramona.
I'm not abandoning you as often.
Yeah, you've not given us the breaks, but I mean, we've enjoyed it either way. So I think everything that you throw to us, we shall just like it. Would you mind if we check in with our viewers to see what they are saying?
Yeah, for sure.
Someone is fear for the unknown
Mhm.
can lead to insecurity in your environment.
Yes.
I think she's commenting on which point.
It might have been success being a bigger burden, maybe, right? Because if you don't know, that's
Mhm.
scary, right? And that's a burden in itself.
Yeah, that's right. There is another comment here. Set your pace in the
Mhm.
race of life. No one is chasing you. Make great use of time without rushing.
Mhm.
That's great.
It's,
Those are
that
beautiful.
whole concept of slow and steady wins the race, right? Just keep moving forward.
Slow and steady. The world can be very, very messy and very fast. Sometimes we need to really pick up some pace. But that does shouldn't mean that we are not focused on where we're headed. There is a comment here. I think you just go forward when you're successful. You also be
Mhm.
able to help others. Yeah,
Exactly,
this
yeah.
is this is something right to believe. What do you think? I think she has the gist of the whole
Mhm.
point.
Well, yeah, and I see that a lot, especially with people who are first timers, so to speak, right? So when I look at some of the people who, like Oprah Winfrey, for example, right? Who, came from poverty and then became like this very popular talk show host here, right, in the US, and she made all this money, but she's always giving back, right? Some of it good, some of it not so good. I think sometimes she forgot where she came from, but but she has given a lot, right? She has given a lot, and she wouldn't have been able to had she not been successful first, for better or worse. Trying to think of other examples. A lot of our big, I guess, basketball or football stars, because here in the US they're paid very handsomely, right, for what they do. A lot of them didn't come from, good backgrounds, right? A lot of them came from poverty. And then when they have the money, they can build schools, right? I know there was a famous basketball player recently who funded a whole school, for example. There are these things that you can do if you believe that you can be successful to give back. And not all of us will be the next, big basketball player or the next Oprah Winfrey, but even just knowing that you're financially secure and you have a little bit extra that you can give, it goes a long ways, right? It goes a long
Yeah,
ways to give back. So yes, to, be successful and give back what you can when you can, and know that you're not taking from other people by being successful. I think that's a big misconception that we have, right?
yeah.
Not a limit on
I
success.
Yeah, that's right. And actually, talking about role models and Oprah, you can't measure the
Mhm,
impact and how many girls out there. I have I'm a person who interacts a lot with teenagers, and
mhm,
everyone is like, I want to be like Oprah.
mhm,
And I don't know, Oprah is how many generations above ahead, but these are teenagers, but still the
mhm,
thought of being like Oprah is there. So the
mhm.
kind of figure, the kind of meaning and sense she makes
Right.
to them is I don't know how much of giving out that is, because it is really important for these young people to have someone to look up to. Many of them want to be
Mhm.
like Oprah, and I'm sure there are these ones who will watch this and be like, I want to be like Coach Mona. So you're giving out.
Don't know about
you're
that,
giving,
but yeah.
you're actually giving out. We are all blessed to have you, and we are all uh, learning from you, sharing with you. We feel inspired. We're checking the way we think. It's too bad that we time bad. I think we're already 2 minutes past, and we
Mhm.
did not even realize.
That's
So
okay.
I would love for you to just sum up this and
Mhm.
give us some beautiful closing statements before the impeachment of President Trump.
Ah, that's a whole nother topic. That's a whole nother session. I can't. Okay, back to positive thinking.
Okay, no problem.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so today we talked about 4 hidden barriers, right? We talked about feeling flawed, and I think, we talked a little bit about how the important thing is that we just accept that we are flawed, right? We do have flaws, but that's not all we are, right? And rather than seeing our flaws as something that means we're not deserving, we should see our flaws as something that we can work with or work around, or in spite of, right? We still deserve success because nobody is without flaws. So feeling flawed was the first one we talked about, and we spent a lot of time on that
Mhm.
one. We talked a little bit about the hidden barrier of feeling disloyal or abandoning people, and I think actually the last three kind of all have a little part of that, right? Where there's some fear or guilt or shame about moving away from those who are not succeeding at the same rate or at the same pace as we are, right? And we don't want to abandon them, we don't want to be disloyal to them. And so we've been talking about how, success isn't taking away from other people, and our success can actually help other people, right? Whether it's through inspiring new generations or whether it's through giving back. So we shouldn't think that our success is taking from other people, but rather we can see our success as giving back to other people, and
Yeah.
shining light on them as well. So I think that would be my summary of things. But
Yeah. I just didn't want to add on what you just summarized, but I feel like I should say this.
yes,
I
absolutely.
A lot of women fear to be more successful than their husbands.
Hmm.
It has kept a lot of women behind because in it's like spite of being humble and respectful, and so they don't go for it actually when they see that the husband is stuck.
Mhm.
But like you've just said, go for it. I'm saying this because I know the society I'm coming from, and this is a message to you girls, sisters. Just go for it. Just it doesn't matter. Go for it and be successful. This is the only way you can actually inspire him and inspire your kids and the generations after. You don't need to be stopped by such beliefs. So that is
Mhm.
just like some dessert I'm putting
I
on
love thank
uh,
you.
Coach Ramona's summary, beautiful summary. And thank you very much for everyone. You
Thank you.
have many people who are thanking you. I can't let them not be heard.
I think they were thanking you. Those were some good words.
I don't think so. They are thanking you.
Was it yeah.
Sister Mona, okay, let us see this one. Thanks for hosting another. You see, that
This one might be mine. I
yeah.
think the other
So
one was
this is
for
you. This is you, and I believe many more shall come for you. I just love it that they love you. These are
Mhm.
our ladies, and I love that ladies support ladies. Ladies
Yeah.
make gentlemen, and the moment they understand that, the world will be a better place.
Aw.
So thank you very much,
Sure.
Coach Mona, for being
Thank
here.
you.
It's really
Yeah.
warm to have you here on these sessions. I think this is when you get to promise us that we shall see you next
Yes,
time.
next month. We'll
All right.
meet again.
All right. Thank you very
Perfect.
much.
Thank
Bye.
you. Take care, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for watching. And that was it. For any inquiries, for any questions, just leave your comment, leave your question, leave your contribution. Let the world be a better place. You can reach out to Coach Ramona. I'm sure she's positive about that.
Absolutely. Please do.
Yeah. Wait, that should close the session. She will come back. You heard her. All right. Thank you very much, please.
Thank
Have a
you.
very wonderful afternoon, I know.
Yes,
And
thank you.
take care of yourself. Take care of yourself, everyone.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.